The NFL playoff race is hot, and Bill Belichick is a Tar Heel? Obviously, we got a lot to talk about this week on Political Football. As the doink heard round the world gets the Chiefs to 12-1, Bill Belichick is a Tar Heel, and I am back. Welcome to Political Football, everybody. The Iceman, Matt Frey, stepping in for Dave while he's in Germany, and with me, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. First, Cleve, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Good. How you guys doing?
And Scott, of course, the king of the knuckleheads. What's up, buddy?
Oh, yeah, the clown. The clown king. I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We are great, I would say. Dave, I think, is doing better than we are. He is touring the Christmas Village. What do you mean? I mean, it's a pretty good trip.
It's a nice trip, but I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Is he a beer drinker? Does he drink a lot of beer? I never known Dave was
so.
a beer guy.
No way.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing.
No, I don't think so either. And it wouldn't be for me. I would be eating a lot of food while I was over there because food in Europe is quite amazing. Well, gentlemen, it is great to be back here. So right now, for those of you who are watching, if you're watching on the Political Football feed, we are also simulcasting on the Iceman and Coach feed, and we're going to be doing that as well for Iceman and Coach at 9:15 a little bit later, trying to get a little bit of exposure for anybody who has never seen either of our shows. So welcome to everybody. And of course, guys, there was an interesting week in the NFL. We have, 4 games left to go? So I would say we are right into the playoff race, as it were. I know some people might think it's early, but 4 games, a lot can happen, a lot can't happen. But let's talk about some things that happened from this past week. The one I'm going to start with is the Philadelphia Eagles, 11-2 football team. Generally speaking, if you're 11-2, things are really good, right?
Yeah, should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Having won 9 in a row, especially after last year, you'd think that everything was hunky-dory in Philadelphia. But A.J. Brown doesn't seem to think so. He was asked after their win over the Panthers, which admittedly was not that great, what are some things they can improve on? And he very definitively said passing. Scott, I want to ask you, last year they had some issues, and Coach and I talked a lot about the fact that Sirianni might not be the guy for this locker room. There might be some things going on there. Is this starting to creep in right now with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was certainly a thing earlier this year too. To me, it seemed like last year that Jalen Hurts had to be the adult in the room, so to speak, because Sirianni could not be. So he sort of handled a lot of stuff as the quarterback and the leader of that team. But you know how, I mean, you guys, we all know how it is. I mean, you can win games, but sometimes players aren't happy with their role or they're not happy. I don't know how much of that game, like last week specifically, you guys watched, but there were times when it did look like Jalen Hurts was just refusing to throw to a wide open A.J. Brown. And maybe the way to view the whole thing is just it's a frustrated dude in the locker room. Yes, it was a win, but he's wide ass open at times. And like Hurts is looking at him and just, I'm going to throw it somewhere else. It's weird. It's a strange thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think there are issues in that locker room, but having said that, that's not a team that I would want to play going into the playoffs at all.
I think it's the economics of it all. You guys know how this time of year we're coming down to the playoffs, and the playoffs, these guys' contracts are incentivized for them hitting certain benchmarks, certain yardages, certain things for their bonuses. And again, you're also playing for your stats. Like if you go into the Hall of Fame or you want to do something later. And be recognized for it, you want to be the guy, and again, to Scott's point, if you're wide open, why not throw it to him? What's going on? My parlay took a hit because I had Jalen over 200 yards. You couldn't get 200 yards. Seriously. Like I was pissed. So I get it, man.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, though, Sirianni's job is to take all of these talented guys, which are undeniably talented. This is a great football team. Scott, to your point, wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs. And for the star quarterback and the star receiver to have this kind of a rift this late in the season in such a successful season, to me speaks volumes that Sirianni might not be doing his job as it relates to making sure that all these guys are on the same path, because you would never have seen this with a Brady Belichick team. Brady would have never taken that. He would have been like, you're going to get whatever I say you get because this is what's winning us football games. And maybe that's a different NFL now. Maybe this is different, but it seems like, I mean, Sirianni earlier in the season, jawing at fans when they're chanting to fire him, which is so Philadelphia. Like, you kind of got to know that. I just worry that as we're getting to crunch time here late in the season, that the Eagles are going to implode when they have a very talented football team, and that window shuts like that, and you can ask the 49ers about that.
Yeah, it's one football. I always say it's one football.
And looking at the numbers, he's got 36 targets over the last 6 games, right? Like that's really, there's more going on there than just, he's having a down year. They're not really getting the ball to him as much as historically he has gotten the ball in the past. So, frustration is going to spill over, but averaging 6 targets a week is just, it's not enough.
Is he the hot receiver? Is he the number one option on the check down? Like, is he the guy that we're looking to get separation first?
Not necessarily. He's an impossible to defend one-on-one man cover player because he's so big. He's big and fast, and he's quick too. Mm-hmm. But they have Devontae Smith. Their offense is all about Saquon Barkley right now. So,
that's what I was going to say. It's one football. It's one football.
Yeah. So there's a lot of touchdowns that are going to their running game, and Brown's not getting, what he's used to getting from a volume standpoint.
I mean, I get the stats part, but isn't it about winning? I mean, don't these guys want to win a Super Bowl when it's all said and done? They got so close before A.J. Brown, and now here they are. It just seems very odd. Like you said, it's like 6 targets. Obviously, this guy has proven that he's going to make your football team definitively better. I think that he's even made Jalen Hurts look definitively better by comparison as well. And I know there's a lot of people who still are not on the Jalen Hurts train because they just don't see it. And is it a Jalen Hurts thing? Is it a team chemistry thing? I'm not really sure, but it certainly would make me nervous. I mean, I'd like to think that they can put it together and get through the NFC, but they're not, no offense, like they're not going to beat the Lions, who are so well coached, who are so disciplined in that way. They're not going to beat them if they're worried about the stats that they're going to get.
They're not. And some of the stats are really revealing. Like 3 years ago, A.J. Brown was wide receiver 6 in PPR fantasy leagues. And then last year, he was wide receiver 5. That's kind of what he's used to being.
Wow.
This year, he's wide receiver 25.
Yeah, that's low.
There's been a significant drop. So, he might be right in saying that their passing game is sort of anemic and it's a problem. But your rushing offense is pretty damn good. So,
that's a weapon. I mean, Cleve loves to see it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love running backs, bro. You know that. I just think it's it's an economic thing. But if they were losing, if they were on this 9-game winning streak, then this would be a thing. But like Matt said, we're winning, so shut up.
Yes.
Shut up.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is like Jalen Hurts needs to be the leader and be like, dude, it doesn't matter how we get here. We're getting here. Like, let's ride this workhorse, because like Barkley next year could be completely done. Like, they are getting a historic season out of him. Just literally, no pun intended, run with it. Seriously.
Yeah, we don't know the dynamic that is inside that locker room, right? So, you mentioned Sirianni. Sirianni to me is not like the idea that he's yapping to fans.
Yeah.
It's just like, he's got to grow up too. So I don't know how much there of that is still present inside that locker room, but I'm assuming there's some of it. So if the head coach can act up, alpha diva receiver can too.
That is an excellent, excellent point. And they are going to take the lead from their coach. And moving on to another game, which had to have been the game of the year, I would say, Rams-Bills. Rams get the upset win over the Bills at home, 44-42. And to me, I look at the Rams and Matt Stafford, and Matt Stafford's the kind of guy, everybody knows that they're going to eat because that's what's going to get them the victory. And they look really good. And even Josh Allen on the other side, coming into the season, admittedly, I was a little skeptical about them offensively, but Josh Allen is the offense. He's going to get it to whoever he needs. And if you look at these two teams, they don't have the same problems as the Eagles. They're actually doing whatever they have to do to win. And the Rams, even with all the injuries, are still hanging tough. That's what I took away from this game. But what about you, Cleve?
Same thing. I mean, I completely wrote the Rams off in the preseason. I didn't think they were having anything remotely good of a season. Puka is amazing. Cup is amazing.
That sideline catch that Puka Nacua made, good Lord.
Oh my God. Every week it's something with this guy. Every week he's like a good possession receiver. Like he's awareness. It's a dream. But I thought the Bills, the Bills are the favorite for me until they get beat. But I was very shocked. It was a really good game though.
It was an awesome football game of high flying offense, right? Like neither of those teams was going to stop each other defensively, but man, when Stafford plays the way he was and Allen playing the way he does, it doesn't matter so much. Stafford was ridiculous in that game.
He was,
but he's so good at the things that he does well. And Allen is like he's a wrecking ball. I don't know if you guys saw the play on the sideline where he threw the ball into the middle of the field and he got drilled going out of bounds. It was like, wow.
Oh yeah.
Gets right up, and I'm sure he loves that stuff, because he's a big guy.
Scares
and,
me.
He is. He would be.
Me.
He's not one of those guys I'd want to have to tackle in the open field, but amazing display of offense and just how good those teams can be when their quarterbacks are going.
I mean, to me, it speaks to McVay as a coach too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe that no one wanted that kid coming out of college, or even going to college. Like no one wanted him. I was critical of him when he came in the league, but man, he's. Did
I tell
special.
you what I called him in my scouting report on him?
Please do.
I referred to him as a Civil War cannon.
I think you did say that. Was it howitzer, or you said Civil War cannon? Okay, you went back to the back.
Back then, you just needed the cannonball to hit the wall somewhere, and he could do that for you. You didn't care where he hit the wall, but football's, he throws the ball as hard as you possibly can. But kudos to him for growing into his game and obviously working on his accuracy and all that stuff. He is going to be the guy that everybody wants. Somewhat inaccurate college quarterback to turn into, is because Josh Allen could do it. Everybody can. It's like, nope, that's not how it works.
No way. He's an outlier for sure. I mean, Josh Allen is like, if Mahomes didn't exist, we would be talking about Josh Allen the way that we talk about Patrick Mahomes, because he hasn't quite got into the promised land, but he does so many things that wins them football games that unfortunately have not been enough, because Patrick Mahomes does just a little bit more, which is crazy because they're both playing at such high elite levels at this point that it's like we don't appreciate Josh Allen enough and what he does because, there's this other guy who keeps on winning and keeps on winning. But I want to talk about Matt Stafford because, Cleve, do you remember after the Rams won the Super Bowl, Dave was automatically on the train of Hall of Famer for Matt Stafford. And I know you took a little bit of pause to that. And when I look at Matt Stafford now, since then, and yes, he's been injured, but I look at the last 2 seasons, the kind of production that he has gotten from a guy like Puka Nacua, who nobody knew about. I mean, maybe Scott did, obviously, with the scouting stuff, but I'm talking about your casual fan. And to see the leadership, to see the success that he has had, and just look at how graceful he plays quarterback late in his career, I think that he has probably cemented his legacy as a Hall of Famer more so since winning the Super Bowl than he did in all of the years, the prolific years that he had. Scott, would you agree?
Yeah, and as a Lions fan, I would tell you that a lot of the prolific years meant nothing. Yes. Great numbers, but what did it get you? Nothing.
That's what my take is still. Kind of, in all fairness, if Eli can make it, Stafford can make it.
I hate you. Why did you bring? You always have to bring Eli up. Why do you do this to me?
Because, he's a 500 quarterback. Take away the 2 Super Bowls, he's nothing, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm slightly I'm leaning towards Stafford being a Hall of Famer. But to what Scott said, it was like all the years of the not winning, that kind of messed it up, because it didn't do the guy any good. I'm glad he got a second act and show how great he is. But and then he won one. So yeah, I'm leaning. I'm not against it now, but I warmed up to it.
But Scott, much to your point about Burrow a month ago about it being more organizational than it is necessarily the head coach, is Matt Stafford's the lack of accolades to go with all the prolific numbers, is that more on the Lions than it was on Matt Stafford?
Oh, it certainly wasn't his. I mean, some of it was his fault, because he would get stuck. And, I'm just going to heave it down to Calvin Johnson down there 50 yards down the field. He would do some of that stuff. But, they were in the playoffs with him, and they just couldn't get over. They traveled to Seattle, and as a Lions fan, it was like they shouldn't even bother to get on a plane. They have no chance in that game. The same thing that they went to New Orleans when Drew Brees was playing there, and it's like, this is going to be terrible. It's going to be ugly, and then the Dallas thing happened where some of the Dallas stuff happened in Dallas, stunner. I mean, it's not all his fault, but he, I think that you mentioned McVay a few minutes ago, and McVay deserves a lot of credit for putting Stafford in a position to be successful, but he also pigeonholed Goff and was asking Goff to do things that Goff simply couldn't do, and was so rigid that he wouldn't change his offense. And maybe he learned from that through the trade and recognizing, these are the things that we can do on offense, where defenses are going to have a really hard time defending us. The McVay Stafford combination is a scary one. If you're looking around, I mean, that's another team I wouldn't want to have to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the teams that are in the playoffs. We're going to look at that a little bit later, and you're absolutely right, and we'll break that down a little bit more. But it's funny because Sean McVay is almost directly responsible for both the Rams winning a Super Bowl, obviously, and the Lions being on that trajectory. And the Lions get another win this week against Green Bay, and they're trying to keep pace with the Chiefs, who got, good Lord, guys, could the Chiefs get any more luck? Like, how many more different ways are they just going to find ways to win? Like, guys are coming out of the crowd, pulling the goalpost so that it can doink off and go in. It's crazy. And then you look at these two teams, the Chiefs and the Lions, and it's like the Lions are winning the way that is exciting and definitively. And then there's the Chiefs, who are like, how are they doing this? I know we've already went over the Chiefs already, but it's insane to me. But the Lions, man, it's amazing, because Jared Goff is doing what, had he done that in Los Angeles, maybe they would have been successful. But obviously Sean McVay being like, I can't work with this guy, sends him off to Detroit. Cleve and I both thought he was done. We thought his career was over. And now look at what happened. So thank you, Sean McVay, for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, the only thing that was left with when Goff came to Detroit was, and we've talked about this, a bunch on this show, is he was like the helicopter parent who oversaw everything that his kid did. And then when his kid failed because he never asked him to do the laundry or whatever you want to, he blamed the kid. And it's like, well, you have to own some of that too. That you never, like, this was when they changed the rules and the offensive coordinator could talk to the quarterback. So Jared Goff really didn't need to know what defenses were trying to do. He just needed to run the plays that McVay was telling him to run. And when teams around the NFL figured out the McVay system, McVay couldn't pivot away from things, and the quarterback didn't understand or wasn't given the freedom to then audible out of plays or whatever it was. So the only upside there was with Goff when he came to Detroit was, could he learn, and was he capable of running an NFL offense without McVay? And the answer is definitively yes. But we didn't know at the time, right? So clearly, I mean, Goff is playing at an incredibly high level. It's undeniable at this point. And I would think that both teams would like to think that they've won that trade, which is the best kind of trade to make.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cleve, what about you? Yeah.
Same. I couldn't have said it any better than Scott. Scott broke it down. I mean, he has his finger on the pulse, being a Lions fan, and we're watching, and he's also still a Stafford fan. So it's great. It's great to watch this guy.
You know, when I knew that that Jared Goff and Man Campbell, as I like to call him, had a real relationship. Do you guys remember when they won? I think it was one of their first games, if not their first game under Campbell, and it was after the Michigan shooting. I think it was in overtime or something like that, and they just had this embrace. And you could tell that they embraced and like they've been going through it together. And they were like the relationship was on display in a way that's like, that is so fucking genuine. And that's where they are now, is that relationship that they have a lot. Like Jared Goff feels more comfortable now than he ever has in his entire career.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's huge for this team, because the more comfortable he is, the more comfortable the guy, like the whole dynamic around them. I mean, the Chiefs are obviously comfortable too, because they're just continuing to win, and they have Mahomes. They have the guy who continues to just do whatever. And that's why I said, I feel like when all is said and done, we're going to look back at this era and we're going to think about Mahomes, and he's going to be great. And it's going to be like looking at the 90s Bulls, and you have to go underneath Michael Jordan to find all of these Hall of Fame players who never sniffed the top, because you had this one guy pushing everybody down on the glass ceiling. And that's really Mahomes. It's just, I can't. I woke up and saw the headline and I was like, you got to be kidding. Like, what's next? What is next for them to win? I just don't know where they can go from doink that actually goes in.
Oh, there'll be some ridiculous Hail Mary or some nonsense. Yeah,
that's true. They haven't gone Hail Mary just yet. It's always been something. Yeah, it's coming. We'll have to keep track of that as we go along. Yeah. Two more things before we get into Scott's breakdown of something that he saw this week. So I think we can all agree the Cowboys are a shittily coached team. That whole blocked punt, trying to field it. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That's right, man.
Right? Like, Cleve, how long have you thought that the Cowboys needed better coaching?
Oh my God, what was it, Matt? 2021?
No, when was Mike McCarthy's press conference? I think it was about when he was at the presser.
The whole barn thing, whatever, is when I got like, okay, this guy's crazy. So yeah, it's been a while.
The thing is, right? Okay, so the three of us, I mean, you two have played football. I've never played football. But as Dave likes to say, I'm not an astronaut, but I know not to take my helmet off in space. And when a kick is blocked, I know don't touch the damn football. It's pretty simple. Not only don't touch it, don't try to fucking field it. And yet here we are with this guy. The game is like, what are we doing? And Mike McCarthy on the sideline just looks and is like, how did this happen? It happened because you're not coaching these guys. The same thing in the Commanders game when the guy fields the onside kick and runs for a touchdown. I get it. Exciting moment. Go down, buddy. Game's over.
Couldn't help
and that's a coaching problem. It's bonkers. It's just fucking bonkers.
It really is, and it makes you wonder how long a guy like Jerry Jones is going to settle for. I mean, he's getting older. Desperation's got to be setting in. They're not getting any better. If anything, things are much worse now than they have been in a long time because of their cap situation. I just don't see how they look at this and think, yeah, we want to run this back. Right? Like,
I'll tell you who visibly doesn't want to run it back, and that's Micah Parsons, because he was like, I'm out. Left the field early, baby.
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, and a guy like Overshown's
done. Don't worry about paying me.
Yeah, he's good.
Like, that injury was brutal.
Yes.
But to lose a player like Overshown the way they did, that's just a mess. It's ugly.
Yeah, and the question then becomes for them, who do you bring in? Now, the name that's been sort of connected to that for the last year has been Bill Belichick. However, as of right before we got on here, Bill Belichick is a Tar Heel, fellas. Can you believe this? Bill Belichick over a college program.
They inked the thing?
I think so.
Wow. I
don't know what to make of it.
That is so bizarre to me. And again, good for it. You know what's funny? So today I'm working from home, and I have like YouTube on and stuff in the back, listen to stuff. And Brady, Jules, and Gronk was talking about their time in New England, and they like, could you see him as a college coach? And they was like, no. I mean, they were kidding, but they were not kidding because of what they've endured under him. And I don't know if an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old can take some of that stuff, even some of the criticisms, because it comes with coaching. I mean, Scott and I come from a different era of coaching where your face mask can be grabbed and you're called a stupid fuck and go sit down and you're fine. You know, like you just got embarrassed from the team, but your next play out, you're going to go ball out. I don't know if these kids are going to buy in because I think the generational gap is so wide. but he's selling them the dream of like, hey, I have a direct pipeline to the NFL. I got GMs in my pocket. So that's going to be the draw, and that's the ticket. So if you want to endure that, I can get you to the NFL. You know.
Yeah, and you made the point earlier on our text string. It's I hope he has the awareness and the understanding to know that these are kids, right? And it's not,
these are kids.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about this, and it is weird. Like on the surface, it is definitely weird to think about the guy who ruled over the NFL sidelines for 40 years or whatever being in college. But I then was like, I wonder if maybe, this is maybe not a hot take, but it's certainly a curious take, is maybe he's better suited to coach in college now than he is in the NFL, because maybe the NFL has changed in the way that it is professionally, that like he sort of is not somebody that's taken seriously because he's so old, the game has passed him by, whatever. But then you move him into a college program. I do think that he does realize the difference. Like, I do think that even though he is a harder coach, that these are professionals, right? They're getting paid a lot of money to play football. And so in his mind, I think that's where maybe his mentality comes. But perhaps when he goes to college, he understands that this is a developmental thing. And maybe this is something he hasn't done in a very long time. And it sort of scratches an itch of developing players, because that's something that as a GM, he didn't get a lot of credit for because he was kind of a shitty GM. Yeah. And so here he goes to this program, you know? Yeah. But so I wonder if maybe this is a better move, even though it looks weird because of what we're used to seeing from him. The only thing that's odd to me, well, not the only thing, but the thing that sticks out to me most is they just fired a 73-year-old coach, and now they're bringing in a younger 72-year-old coach. So, like, that's kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's coming in with the pedigree, so that's obviously like the caveat there. But here's the thing, and Matt and I, we talk about this all the time when we chit-chat it up. If a kid isn't on board, now they could jump in the transfer portal like the next semester. Like, they're like, you know what, I'm done. After the season, I'm in the transfer portal. Look what happened to Marshall. The entire team is in the transfer portal because they wouldn't pay the coach, right? And the coach had a pretty good year, as we would say. So that part of it is kind of weird. And then my thing is that the turnover in college is so, like after 2 years, you have a whole new team for the most part. So whatever quarterback you get, every 2 years, you're getting a new quarterback, more or less, right? So you're not going to have a Brady under center for 5 years, more or less. You're going to get a kid for 2 years and he's out. And if you're pipelining these guys to the NFL, the window is so short. So he's going to put a lot of pressure on winning because, hey, get the wins so you can get out of here, right? Because I have to give you the clean bill of health to go to the next level. So, I mean, if Saban can come from the NFL and go to college and do it, yes, it can be done. I just think his personality is really the linchpin there.
Can you imagine, though, guys? Can you imagine him being in the tunnel with the Tar Heels in Blacksburg, Enter Sandman's happening? He doesn't give a shit. Like, doesn't give a shit at all.
No.
Like, and that part does.
He's probably got earplugs in.
He's like, I can imagine him saying that, we're on to Clemson. I mean, or we're on to Middle Tennessee State. Like, I'm just trying to imagine him saying these things in like these words out loud because it's ridiculous. But then again, Cleve, the thing is like, the not disparity. I guess the difference between like the best coaches in college and then the mediocre coaches in college is like a massive, massive chasm. And so like Bill Belichick walking into the sideline of a college program almost gives them a leg up just by all of the stuff that he has seen in the pros and all the stuff that he has seen. And imagine some of these guys who are getting their first coaching gig across from them, and it's like, here comes Middle Tennessee State against Bill Belichick. Like, it's just got to be the weirdest thing. But there, it'll be interesting. If they win, nobody gives a shit. Guys will be transferring there like crazy.
Well, the one of the most interesting things is going to be, who does he fill out his staff with?
His son,
maybe.
Yes.
And
he's bringing all those people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like, think about like the dudes who might come to North Carolina to coach with him, the advantages they're going to have just as coaches.
Matt Patricia, Joe Judge,
please
run it back, Romeo Crennel.
I mean, he literally said that he's running a pro program. Like it's not even like it's not even inferred. Like, I mean, it's inferred. I'm running a pro program here. So which means the pressure to win is going to be a lot for these kids. So whoever they're getting in psychologically, these kids got to be tough.
So the other element of this is the fact that the NIL, like they're already upping it to like a lot. Like the North Carolina, and the other thing is Interestingly enough, they're a Jordan brand affiliated school. Michael Jordan kind of has a lot of money, and Michigan's in the same boat. So like, there's money to be had there for sure. And I think that's an element now. It's like, it is kind of more pro. Like, it's basically semi-pro football at this point because these guys are getting paid a lot of money. And North Carolina's taking a risk. It'll be interesting to see how it works out. But Scott, a month ago, you got a shine. You told us all about Caleb Williams, all about the Bears, and we want to do this again, and I want to give you the shine. It is time for a segment, but this segment is going to be named, and Cleve, Scott, it is going to be named.
I made some notes.
And so, Scott, it is your time for I made some notes. So here you go.
Paper.
Yes, please crumple paper. It's very important.
Love it.
Yeah,
love it.
I made some notes. So this is just a little small observation about the difference between Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, and it has to do with watching the way the Bills defended Stafford in the Rams offense. They played cover 4 or quarters coverage a lot in that game. And Stafford, so cover 4 is essentially you divide the width of the field into 4 parts, and you have a corner or a defensive back responsible for each of the 4 widths of the field. And then, each linebacker on the side of the field has the flat responsibility. And then the Mike linebacker would be like a deeper hook kind of defender or the deeper curl defender. Think of like a tight end running like up the seam and just turning around after like 10 yards kind of thing. So there are different ways you can exploit that coverage, and this is where you have to recognize the players that you have. So Stafford, the way Stafford exploited that coverage was he threw to the outside the numbers to the boundary, kind of high, right? And he think back shoulder throws, and he let Cooper Kupp and Nakua and those guys just make plays on the sideline. And he's got enough arm strength that he can do that kind of stuff. He can rip throws all day long. And the thing is the thing to watch for is if the corner, like the deeper corner defending, let's say Nakua's running like a 15-yard out, where there's going to be a back shoulder throw. If the defender's butt is facing the sideline, it's a really easy throw for a player like Stafford to make, because for the defender to get involved in that kind of a play, he's got to turn and then drive on the throw, and there's just not enough time to do that. So a guy like Stafford's got the arm strength to rip throws, down, outside the numbers to the boundary, where a player like Goff doesn't have the ability to do that. But what he does do well is throw the ball into the middle of the field. So the way he would attack quarters coverage is throw digs and crossing routes, and it's just a different way of looking at things. But when we talk about a quarterback having arm strength and some of that stuff, sometimes it is as simple as like, we all know Stafford's got a cannon, and if a team wants to play that kind of coverage, he can exploit them all day long, and he did against the Bills. So this week we get to see how Goff is going to do it, and he's not going to do it the way Stafford did. He's just not, because he doesn't have that kind of arm strength. So to me, it was just an interesting thing to look at, the different kinds of coverage, how that would help you, because a lot of teams want to do that stuff because it adds a safety into the box to help defend against the run. But if you have a player like Stafford who can just rip throws to the sideline, good luck. You can't stop it. He was hot in that game doing it.
I'd say so.
Goff is going to do it into the middle of the field. So Amon-Ra is going to feast in this game, catching those digs, those 10 to 12-yard digs. Laporta is going to do similar things. They're going to get Jamison Williams on the deeper crossing routes where he's uncoverable doing those things. Stafford isn't great at throwing the ball into the middle of the field like Goff is. So it was an interesting thing, the juxtaposition of two elite quarterbacks and the different ways they go about doing things.
But they play to their strengths, right? And that's exactly what they should do. And that's
exactly
what a good coach puts them in the position to do. Yeah, well, obviously, the Bears, right? The Bears are making Caleb Williams run all over the place.
Yeah.
And then you got these two guys who, again, you look at the Rams and you think 7-6, that's not that great. But when you think about all the injuries that they had, and now they're getting guys back at the right time. They did the same thing last year.
Yeah.
But, Scott, let me ask you, is this a blueprint to beating the Bills, or is this just one of those, it was a hot quarterback on the right day? Because it's not like the Bills didn't put up 42.
It could be a blueprint to beating the Bills, but good luck finding a specific kind of, I mean, how many Matt Staffords are there? You
True.
know what I mean? So if they're susceptible to getting beat outside the numbers on the boundary, with high, really, accurate throws with lots of velocity, that's fine. There's not a lot of quarterbacks who can do that kind of stuff. I don't think the Lions are going to throw up 44 on Buffalo this week.
No, I would say not.
But Buffalo might have some issues, scoring this week too. Interestingly, the Lions have so many players on IR on their defense, but they're playing pretty well. This is going to be an interesting matchup. I don't expect the fireworks like we saw last week, but Stafford was just incredible last week with those throws. He really was.
I mean, in today's NFL, when you get a veteran quarterback who has seen so much, who knows how to read the field, and the thing is Stafford, and even Goff to an extent, is confident in the throws that he's making. I know that he had a 5-interception game against the Texans, but they still won the game, right? He did what he had to do later on to win. And Matt Stafford in that game, I was like, he just looks like he knows when he throws it, it's going to be caught. And even though Nakua had to make a ridiculous catch, he made the ridiculous catch. Like, he trusts the guy that he's going to be able to do it. And that's invaluable. It's invaluable to have what my brother-in-law would call like the Jedi quarterback who has seen it all. And
like even the Nakua catch, right? There's no defender who was going to make a play on that ball. That was Nakua's catch to make, or it was incomplete.
Yep. And he caught it. And it was amazing. And so these are two teams who are putting their players in the best place to win. And to your point, Scott, look around the NFL, 32 of these jobs. And how come none of these other knuckleheads seem to be able to do this right? When it's like, what are you doing? Like, What is it? Is it a talent problem? Is it a coaching problem? And yet here you have these two teams who are incredibly well coached. Say what you want about Dan Campbell and the analytics stuff and the risk-taking or whatever. It is who he is. He's going to ride exactly the way that he is. Pause. And he honestly, just it's going to be that way. And McVay is the same thing. And they both have success. Scott, that was a great breakdown. I learned a few things. I did know from all of my Madden playing days, but not quite exactly the way that you broke it down. So now I'm going to be expecting Matt Stafford to just throw to the sideline all the time. And I'm going to expect Puka Nakua to just continue to make these ridiculous catches that less than 1% can make.
You see the corner with his butt to the sideline. Just know that he's sort of inviting that throw. And it's not, it's a hard throw, but it's almost like an automatic read for Stafford. Like, there's no way that defender can drive on the ball in time for him to get there. And as long as I place it reasonably well, first down, baby, let's go.
Yeah, and that's all it's about, moving the chains.
I mean, back in the days, we don't have that many Ed Reeds in the league anymore, and those guys. So those guys you wouldn't throw against in that situation, right?
No.
You think he would?
No.
Yeah.
There are some guys that you should not challenge. Yes.
Yeah.
But even that list is small, right?
Yes.
So, it's like every once in a while you get a guy like that.
Yeah, every once in a while. So it is, we're watching players do things that I know that they get micro-analyzed all the time, especially with replay, but my God, they're doing things that so few people can actually do. And sometimes just watch it and enjoy it, fellas. Scott, thank you so much for that. I hope everybody loved that. We'll have to do that again next week if we run this back, much like McCarthy and the Cowboys are going to run it back again in Dallas. So, fellas, what do we got? 4 games left before the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yep, which means four games left of my Red Zone. Saddest day of the year whenever I cancel Red Zone until the fall sometime. But let's take a look at the playoff outlook, shall we? So we're going to start in the AFC. And this is as it looks today. Obviously, we have games this weekend. We have 4 more weeks to go. But what we're looking at is Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Houston. Those are your division winners. And then, of course, in the mix, Baltimore, Chargers, Broncos, and to an extent, the Colts, Miami, and somewhat Cincinnati. So when we look at this, guys, I want to ask you. So for the division winners, I think everybody is solid except for maybe Pittsburgh, only in the sense that they have a tough team behind them in the Ravens. Would you consider that fair?
Yes, and they have
I would say that.
They have a stiff test this week against Philly.
Yes. And so when you look at these teams, the AFC, I think, is a little bit, I don't want to say shirt up, but I think a lot of teams are sort of where they need to be in the AFC comparatively to the NFC, which when you look at it here, obviously we talked about the Lions already, the Eagles, very good. And then after that, it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of division leaders with the Seahawks. I mean, the NFC West is a disaster. And so is the NFC South is a disaster with the Bucs. Although I will say I do love some Baker. And then you got the Vikings, the Packers, and the Commanders, and a whole litany of other teams, including, like I said, the entire NFC West. So there's still a lot to be played for in the NFC. I just wanted to give everybody kind of a look at that. But let's go through some of these division leaders. So let's talk about the Bills. I think we're all in agreement that the Bills are a very strong football team, quite possibly maybe the best team in the AFC. And I think that it's, Super Bowl or bust for them, is it not?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be.
Yeah, I would say so. Steelers are a team that I want to talk about because, all right, I've been on record saying I thought Russ was kind of done, and here he goes to Mike Tomlin, gets a real good coach, and here they are. But Dave kind of flippantly said that if you want a coach that's going to lose in the first round, you get Mike Tomlin. But I feel that way about this team. Like, I want to hear from each of you. Cleve, we'll start with you about, do we actually believe that the Steelers are a strong contender as they are right now?
They're very well coached. These guys, Tomlin is always showing his pedigree as getting these guys ready and up for games. I too, like you, thought Russ was cooked and he's on last legs and he's just serviceable. I thought Fields would have been the guy this year, and Russ kind of being the mentor, the clipboard guy, holding it for him and everything like that. But he's getting a last act from him, a last hurrah, and they may sign him next year again. It's looking like it's going to work out for them to retain him. But yeah, I just think the coaching is superior. I think that these guys are playing. Watt is amazing. On defense, and these guys are winning games. Russ is showing like Seattle days, like the old Seattle days before it all fell apart up there. So yeah, he's looking good, and I'm shocked that they're in that position right now. I'm shocked because I wrote them off as well.
Scott?
And it's crazy too, because they're starting a rookie center, a rookie right guard who they drafted in round 5. Their first round pick has not played after. I don't think he played after he got hurt in week 1, Troy Fatanu. So you were essentially starting the season with 3 rookies on the offensive line and the Russ Wilson stuff going on. And here they are. What are they? 8. What's their record?
10-3.
10, whatever it is.
That's crazy. That's crazy. 10-3.
Think about what they've done. And if Tomlin has proved anything to this point, he is a master of dealing with personalities. Whatever he does, he is just phenomenal. It's like that's his superpower. Whatever he does, however he does it. I do think that they're a problem for whoever plays them, because they can run the ball. They get good enough pass pressure on defense that they're gonna harass whoever they play. And it's Pittsburgh, and it's just there's just a mindset about the way that team plays. That's the Tomlin factor, is that he's able to get those guys ready to go. And you're seeing it this year more than ever. It's super impressive what he's done.
I still say that every team that has a head coaching vacancy has a contract ready in case, for some stupid reason, the Steelers were going to fire Mike Tomlin. Like, they got the Tomlin contract ready to go. The Commanders, for the longest time, when there was a lot of rumblings, remember, when Mike Tomlin was going 8-8, but I said, look, folks, he's going 8-8 with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. Like, for the love of God, like 8-8 is a minor miracle with some of that quarterback play. And I think that was even including the whole Myles Garrett incident with the bobsledding helmet for Mason Rudolph. So, he's been through a lot, Mike Tomlin has. And so it is nice to see him. But I think we all agree Bills contenders. Would you guys say that the Steelers are contenders?
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll rest my hat on the coaching. You could have raised a kid from kindergarten to going to college in the time that he's been winning in Pittsburgh. That's insane.
It really is
insane. 18 years. Like you can raise it. You can raise a kid to an adult.
He still looks pretty damn good too. Yeah, it really is. I love it. So, contender. So how about the Chiefs? So the Chiefs are 12-1. They have Mahomes. By default, does that make them a contender, or do we kind of feel like, are they the kind of team that could lose a home game early?
You got to give them the champ. They're the defending world champions, so you have to give them. You got to give them that edge. But they don't win sexy,
field, right?
Home field, yep.
Matters.
Yeah, especially if they have to play the Dolphins again. That's an easy win.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I know. So let's talk about the Texans, guys. So the Texans last year, CJ Stroud had what I would consider a transcendent rookie year. And I think he kind of got a pass that it would be somewhat similar. He would grow. But I was reading something recently that comparing the stats for Bryce Young and CJ Stroud over the last however many games it was, eerily similar. And the Texans have a good record, but have looked a little bit shakier. I know Cleve is kind of on the Stroud hasn't looked that good, but Scott, first to you, contender or pretender for the Texans, and why?
I want to say that they're a contender, but I don't want to lie. Right? So I don't know that they are. I like the pieces that they have around them. Losing Nico Collins to the hamstring injury and having him to go to IR for a little while derailed their offense. Obviously, losing Stephon Diggs is a huge problem, but they just haven't looked. Stroud hasn't been the same this year. They've looked just off. And when I look around and I think, all right, what would it look like for Houston to travel to Buffalo to play in an important playoff game? I don't know. Like, I don't think Houston would fare well in that scenario. If Houston had to travel to Pittsburgh, I don't think they would fare well there either.
I don't think so either.
So, I don't want to really call them contenders because I just don't think they could hang in those kind of games.
They're still a young football team. Like, to be honest, are they still kind of ahead of schedule?
Considering Stroud and this was the risk of the moves they made in the draft. The Will Anderson move, trading the first round pick to go get Will Anderson, and now you're in year 2, and yes, you're going to be in the playoffs, but for how long, who knows? And it's been a down year offensively for them all around. It's just they do need more help, right? And I think they have really good coaching too. And Joe Mixon's had a really good year. They're a good football team, but I just don't know that they're going to contend with the best AFC teams this year.
Cleve?
Yeah. Same sentiment as Scott. I would like to just pretty much add, like, Stroud has not been consistent, like in some games, like the games where he's supposed to put them away, like put the team away or whatever. Like he's not hitting guys. But again, his main guys are out. If you don't have Collins, if you don't have Diggs, is Tank Dell on that team?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tank Dell.
He's had a down year too. But...
So like, yeah, it's like last year, rookie coach, rookie quarterback, rookie situation all around, and I think they got figured out. The league kind of figures stuff out. Sophomore year, it kind of a drop off. I'm not gonna count them out, but you guys kind of teed it up perfectly. If they got to go to Pittsburgh or what was the other place? Cold weather.
Buffalo,
Kansas
City.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. Yeah, any one of those, it's not gonna. Yeah, they're not gonna do good, bro.
That's the thing. When you look at the other teams that are sort of like in the mix for the playoffs, I mean, obviously the Ravens 8-5. We've talked about them. Lamar, excellent defensively, huge liability. I think that the Chargers are very well coached. Obviously, they have an identity. The Broncos, though. So the Broncos and Bo Nix have been overachieving. Bo Nix, obviously, comfortable in the pocket, throwing ropes all over the place. But I see this team as kind of like where the Texans were last year, where we're all kind of surprised that, wow, I can't believe that Bo Nix is doing this. I can't believe this is this way. And Stroud is, I don't want to say he's having a sophomore slump, but like once there's a full year of tape on you, it happens, right? I mean, coaches in this league adjust, and it's okay. It's not some indictment that CJ Stroud sucks as a quarterback. Now, if next year he goes down even further, then maybe we can have that discussion, but it is what it is. And so I think that Bo Nix and Sean Payton are benefiting from the fact that they're kind of, they're kind of running a scheme and with players that like people are kind of surprised at it. And so that is kind of a surprising team. Scott, do you think that they're a team that you'd be afraid to play, or do you think that it's kind of this is a nice little year for them, nice little surprise, and it's just kind of take that for what it is?
It's been a wonderful story. The Bo Nix story has been really cool to see it play out, especially in that Peyton system, right? I think that ends though very quickly when you're up against it against much better teams. And it's a rookie. Still, he's a rookie quarterback, on the road in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenge. But yeah, I mean, it's been great. Knicks has been awesome. It's been everything they could possibly have wanted.
Yeah, I would definitely say so, and certainly looked better than Caleb Williams has and the Bears have, and that goes down to, again, putting a guy in the place to do to succeed, and that's what Sean Payton. Even though I'm not a Sean Payton guy, I have to give him his flowers. I did not see them at 8-5 whatsoever.
No,
absolutely no way.
Yeah, same.
Maybe they'll finish 8-9, and I'll be really, really happy. But a couple other teams that are kind of hanging on by a thread. One of them is kind of an up-and-coming team, so to speak, and that's the Dolphins. The Dolphins may make the playoffs, but do we trust them at all? Talking about the teams that they have to go to. If they have to play in Buffalo, no. If they have to play in Pittsburgh, no. If they have to play in Kansas City, no, right? Because their own teammate called them soft when they had to play in Green Bay. This is not a team we can take seriously, is it?
No.
I want to, desperately, because I like them.
I know you like them. You wanted to keep Mike McDaniel, but the fact of the matter is that with Tua, they obviously have looked good. Now, they had needed overtime to beat the Jets. I don't want to, get Cleve all riled up, but that was, kind of an indictment on them a little bit.
Yeah.
But the Jets found another way to blow it, so we're in good shape there. So the Patriots this week, Cleve, we're in the same boat. But the Colts have no chance, right?
You wouldn't think. Is Richardson's playing better than the stats show?
Yeah.
The stat lines are bad. He's doing okay. He's fine, right? I shouldn't say it that way. There are reasons to be concerned about his level of quarterback play, but there are also reasons to be super excited about him as a player too. But of all the teams that you've mentioned, I would think that they would have maybe the least shot of making noise in the playoffs, just because everybody else seems to be humming along pretty good.
Yeah. I agree.
Getting into the playoffs, and for them to even get there, they'd have to go on a run.
Yeah, the AFC is low-key loaded, to be honest, because there's just a lot of really solid football teams that are playing really good football and kind of hitting their groove for the most part heading into this last month of the season. And so I think that the playoff race will be fun to watch. But when I look at this, I think that the cream of the crop in the AFC, Bills, Steelers, Chiefs, those are the teams I think we really want to watch out for. I think the Ravens have an outside chance, and obviously you got a Chargers team that's well coached. Harbaugh, successful everywhere that he goes, to watch out for. But I think the AFC is kind of top heavy in a way, but I think there's a lot to look out for. Let's move to the NFC. We already talked about the Eagles. I think we all agree, excellent football team, things to watch out for. Lions, same way. And then you've got the two other division leaders. You got the Bucks, 7-6. NFC South is terrible, and the Seahawks, NFC West, okay. I mean, neither of these teams strikes me as a team that would strike the fear of God in me. Let's start with the Bucks first. Cleve, to you. I know you're a Baker guy.
Yeah, I love Bake, man. I mean, he's getting production out of the corpse of Mike Williams, so it's been great. But yeah, I can't believe I'm rooting for Todd Bowles. Like, can't.
He still doesn't have a 5 o'clock shadow, by the way.
You can't trust the guy. How could he play cards with the guy?
Tampa is the one team. It's crazy. They beat the Lions and the Eagles.
I know.
So on any given Sunday, man, but it's interesting because the NFC South is going to get one team into the playoffs. The NFC West is going to get one team into the playoffs. The NFC North is going to get 3. And the NFC East is going to get 2. And it's almost like you already know which ones they are. Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit are going to be in the playoffs. Washington and Philly are going to be in the playoffs. Whoever wins the South is in. Whoever wins the West is in. It's kind of like that's where it is.
Yeah.
I think the AFC is a little more open than the NFC is right now, but there's some important games coming up to finish the season. It's going to be really interesting to see how it ends up.
Well, like the NFC, some of the best teams are not even leading their own division. I mean, you got the Vikings at 11-2, and they'd be a wild card team just because the Lions are so damn good. But do you guys remember 3 or 4 weeks ago, Dave in the text thread said it looks like Sam Darnold is coming back and the Vikings are irrelevant? Well, they've ripped off like 3 in a row since he said that. So, and Darnold looked great this weekend. Darnold looked great this weekend.
And it helped that they were playing, Atlanta.
Sure. Well, I mean, look at Atlanta for a minute. I was thinking about this, right? Because Atlanta is a
Jesus.
team that, technically speaking, is still in it. And we gave them a lot of credit for how they were. Since we gave them credit and said that Raheem Morris was doing a great job, they've lost 3 in a row or 4 in a row, whatever it is. But Kirk Cousins, fellas,
Jeez.
like we're done, right? Like he's done.
They have to be thinking about ways to get Penix involved.
100%. And like, why? I guess why has when do you pull that trigger? There's 4 games left to go. They're still hanging on technically by a thread emotionally, but you drafted Penix after signing Kirk Cousins, and Dave has been very vocal about the fact that both of those moves, or either one of those moves, was like the worst thing they could have ever done. They kind of did 2 wrong things in a row. So like, start Penix at this point, because I don't think Kirk Cousins has it. I mean, he's poor decision making, poor throws, and look, I like Kirk. But
so you start Penix and he wins a bunch of games for you in a row, and he becomes the leader of that team going forward. That's not the wrong decision to make to have drafted him.
No, I agree.
It's not. And being reactionary and sort of, casting these guys' careers the day they get drafted is a mistake. It just is. There's so much to play out,
No, it isn't. Are you talking about Caleb Williams is a Hall of Famer? Michael Penix Jr. is a bust. I mean, we know these things the second that they are drafted, guys. Like, we don't need to let the season play out. We don't need anything.
Dave is right that if you're going to pay a quarterback $100 million or whatever it was, then don't overdraft a quarterback in the first round. Not that they did overdraft a quarterback, because Penix was fine, but those, they have to be viewed. They can't be viewed in the same, in the same decision-making process, I guess. That's the way Atlanta wants to make that argument, is they're 2 separate, distinct, decisions we've made. And people like us are like, but they're hand in glove, kind of, they go together. But for them, it appears that they didn't. And, maybe I don't think the Falcons care too much about the actual money they're paying Cousins, for the chance it gave them. But the idea, it shouldn't surprise anybody if Penix becomes like a legit high level quarterback soon.
If I'm Penix's agent, I'm sending Arthur Black for Christmas as a stocking stuffer, a T-shirt with him standing in the doorway of the war room, and the GM trying to explain to him what the move was just made. I would send him a T-shirt of just the CCTV of that shot.
Explain it to me like I'm 5 on the back.
The Falcons situation, though, when you look at it on paper, is actually a very advantageous situation for a young rookie quarterback. It kind of is somewhat similar to what a lot of people felt the Bears had in terms of weapons and offense, but I would actually say that some of the weapons that the Falcons have might be actually better. I mean, Kyle Pitts in college was insane. He was an insane person, and we haven't seen that on the field, and I don't know if that's because of him and his personality or what, but like, obviously there's a high ceiling there. Bijan just kind of is quietly having a nice year when he could be having an explosive year. It's just the weirdest thing. And give Penix the opportunity, because it's not like sending out Mac Jones with the dead corpse of literally every wide receiver who's ever played on the Panthers, right? And then he looks like crap. Put Penix out there at this point. Kirk Cousins is the kind of guy who I think is nice enough who would actually work with him and show him some things. I don't get the sense that Kirk would be that guy.
He would have to. I mean, Kirk, you can't even trust him. The ball security is atrocious.
Oh, atrocious.
He cost them games. Yeah, he cost them games.
Yeah.
And some of those throws, like, what are you thinking about? Who did you see open? What are you throwing? What lane are you throwing into?
It seems to me like he's trying to rip throws
that he can't do anymore.
That he was doing a few years ago that his body no longer can do.
I would say that he watched Matt Stafford rip those throws and was trying to do that himself. But obviously, maybe that's it. Maybe he's like, God, I can do that too. Look, but Kirk Cousins is just, he had a devastating injury last year. It's not working. So move on. I mean, you have to be thinking a couple of years ahead. And even though they're technically in it now, you want Michael Penix to be where some of these other young quarterbacks are in 2 or 3 years. I mean, Jesus, we were just talking about the Texans and how it's like year 2, and we're already like, well, they got to get him some help. And it's like, wow, you don't even have a year. Like you have a year to get it together. And then the next year, it's like, you better fucking produce. And that's where the Falcons are. But this is also the same franchise who's had so many mistakes over the years, and they're kind of in that can't trust him territory. So I'm just going to go ahead and cross them off the list of in the mix, because obviously we all agree not in the mix. But I think the Vikings are. The Packers, I mean, even though they lost to the Lions, they gave it everything that they had. They absolutely gave it everything they had. And I think they're a good football team.
Very much in the mix.
100%. And I feel like if any of the three teams from the NFC North made it to the Super Bowl, I would not be surprised in the least.
Yeah, I mean, it's as tough as that would be to swallow, because you beat them twice. That would suck for Lions fans if the Packers were in the Super Bowl.
Yes,
but still, it would be well deserved, because they're going to have a tough road to get there. They're going to have to play, every week in the playoffs. They're going to play somebody, and maybe even having to travel. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. But they're a good football team. They are a hot and cold kind of football team. Their passing game has been relatively cold recently. And if they pick it up, that's a dangerous football team. They are.
Mm-hmm. I would say, though, the most dangerous football team right now that's not leading a division is the Rams. And I feel like this field better hope that the Rams do not win the NFC West. And I feel like they could, because 8-5 for the Seahawks, I don't get a good vibe around them, but they seem to be just putting it together. But the Rams are the kind of team with the kind of production and the quarterback that they have, easily could knock off a team in the first round and completely obliterate the entire playoff field.
It wouldn't surprise at all if that happened, and they would agree. You said it perfectly. Please don't qualify for the playoffs this year. Just please.
Well, remember, see, but the thing is, Scott, is last year, right, there was a whole to-do because the Rams and Matt Stafford went to Detroit, and it was kind of like, oh, man, can the Lions overcome this emotional thing and all that? And the Rams couldn't get it done. If they have to do that again, Matt Stafford remembers. And this is a McVay that remembers, too.
The North remembers.
Well, the stakes are higher, right? And, again, Matt Stafford is a quarterback who's seen just about everything in the NFL. That would be high-level football, which would probably end 6-3, and I would be look like a complete dumbass. But that is something that I feel like could be absolutely amazing. All right, fellas, so we got 4 weeks to go, a lot of football to play. You guys are going to break it down as you always break it down as we head in. So let's talk Coach of the Year. So when I look at the coaches right now that I feel like should be in contention for Coach of the Year, there's Mike Tomlin and there's everybody else. I kid. But Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid, Sean McDermott, Jim Harbaugh, Dan Quinn, Dan Campbell, and Kevin O'Connell. And I feel like any one of those would be a pretty solid choice.
Yeah, those are all good choices. I think Campbell has done it differently than some of the other guys. So I would think that I hope this isn't homery kind of, the talk of a Lions fan, but the aggression and the, just the culture that they've put together, that they've built. And I know that that's meaningless when it comes to Coach of the Year kind of stuff, but I see the decisions he's making as helping them win games more so than some of the other coaches, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, they're there because of the decisions that he is making, and he is an active part of why they are here in the identity of that football team, which you can't necessarily say for some of these other coaches that are out there. Even though the records are there, that team feels the way that it feels because of Dan Campbell. It wouldn't feel that way if they were 12-1 and Bill Belichick was their coach.
Yeah.
He definitely has a wheelbarrow next to him with his nuts in it on the sideline.
I was going to say that about Baker earlier, that the reason that the Bucs keep winning football games is because Baker is just walking on the field with a wheelbarrow and his nuts in it, because that's the only way that they are winning football games. So, you know what? If Dan Campbell wins the award this year, the NFL should change the award to look exactly like that, a wheelbarrow award, and we all will know what it means.
A wheelbarrow of balls.
Exactly. Pause. Yeah. So MVP, guys. If you were to just have a snap judgment on the MVP, Cleve's going to give it to Saquon because he loves running backs. So, Scott, to you, what about you?
Oh, man.
Don't be afraid to be wrong. You guys have been wrong before.
I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong with whatever follows.
I actually wouldn't give it to Saquon, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
But go ahead.
No, you go first because it'll help me think.
I would actually give it to Josh Allen, to be honest with you. Playing lights out. I think of all the quarterbacks that from last year, like he lost some pieces, and he's made those guys, and he has his DNA all over that team. They would run into hell behind him, the way I see it. All these guys play for their quarterbacks, but he's willing these guys to wins, right? Saquon, he's having a stellar year, but again, it's a quarterback award,
though, right? Aren't we there?
It's a quarterback award. So being in that ilk, it has to be Josh Allen.
Should the NFL change it though? Like, should they make it more overt that it's a quarterback award? Because when you talk about value, that's the one word that's always kind of gotten to me about this discussion, is that I feel like every quarterback is valuable. So by default, they're the most important position. So like, maybe we should change it, because there are other ways to define value. I mean, if you take Saquon off of that Eagles team, they're still good, but are they where they are now? Because he's been,
Yeah. See, the quarterback thing makes me go down to a guy like Joe Burrow. And I know they're not in the playoffs and they're not in the hunt right now, but Joe Burrow is having a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
I mean like silly good. And
I was watching football with my father-in-law and the Bengals. He's like, God, the Bengals are bad. How bad must Burrow be? And I was like, hold on, I'll read you his stat line as of today. And it was like 27 touchdowns, 4 picks. And he's like, how the hell are they 4-8? I'm like, this is the question that everybody wants the answer to. And I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow, of all people, wants it right now.
Yeah. No, Burrow's been incredible. Goff won't win it. But I mean, he does fit the category of a team that's going to run through the regular season and finish with the 1 seed and play to a high level. He had the 5-pick game. That's going to kill him. But I don't think he should win it either. I mean, I think at this point it's Allen's to lose. Trying to think of somebody else who would even be in that hunt, and I can't think of anybody right now.
Right, and I think it is Allen's award to lose, and I feel like Allen is going to get to the point where, I mean, you can't give it to Mahomes every single time. I mean, Mahomes has won so many MVPs. It's obvious that Patrick Mahomes is the reason why the Chiefs are as good as they are. But I think if you look at this Buffalo team, they don't have a lot of weapons that are recognizable. You know what I mean? And then there's Josh Allen, who is making it happen with everything that is on that team and is not on that team. And I feel like Cleve is 100% right. But I feel like Saquon should get a nod, only because, again, like, he moves away from the Giants. A lot of people were like, it's a running back, who cares? And not just Dave. I mean, I'm talking about a lot of people. The league told you that running backs are not important. And he is having a historic year, and I'm happy for the guy. But MVP really doesn't matter. It only really matters if you win the Super Bowl MVP, because as Cleve likes to say, do it in the NFL, do it in the playoffs, and then do it in the Super Bowl. And that's where we are. All right, so Cleve, I have one still in the league for you. Are you ready for this, sir?
Shoot.
All right, so you're going to rank this on a scale of 1 to 5. This one actually made me laugh out loud when I read it. For the Miami Dolphins, do you know who had 1 catch this weekend? Odell Beckham Jr.
Wow. It's a corpse.
1 catch for 3 yards.
I knew he was on the squad, and that is wild how the career arc of a guy 5 years ago.
Can we still get all of the video from his dad about all the times he was open and Baker missed
coming the next Caesar? Now it's like he's just a guy, right?
He's not even just a guy. Like, he's just like a mop-up guy. I mean, he had 1 catch against the Jets. I mean, I just was like, wow, Odell Beckham Jr. still hanging around. I totally forgot about him. So there's that.
How do you get a paycheck? How do you get like a game check when your production was that and you're not hurt? Like, you got 3 yards.
I don't know, Scott. I feel like it'd be very easy to catch 1 ball, not get hit, go get a game check and deposit it. Would feel pretty comfortable.
I would love to do that.
Me too. I would 100% love to do that.
Scott, you think you could get 25 yards on a hard slant in the NFL?
Ooh.
If you took my body parts that were going to be blown apart and measured the distance between them all, yes, 25 yards perhaps.
But I'll tell you what.
Arm at the 15. He's got a foot at the 30. Yeah.
I know unequivocally that I could not. Like, there's just so many factors that I know that I could not. I'm not even sure sometimes that I could get 25 yards in my own house trying to get by my 4-year-old, let alone with all these big ass fast dudes trying to get my fat white ass out there on the field. Like there's just so many factors.
I can't even walk in the yard without shit coming up. How am I going to get 15 or 25 yards? Come on.
I just think of Myles Garrett patrolling like the flat, and you're coming on a hard slant, and you're like looking for the ball.
Can you imagine?
Guy's coming off. This guy dropped from the edge. He's like, ooh.
No. What would happen in that scenario is I'd see that coming. I'd be like, Myles, you have it. It's all yours, pal. Yep. Because I want to be able to remember who I am later in life. And it will not be from getting hit by you over the middle on a hospital wall. No.
And I now need to go change my pants because we got a problem.
No, I would have shat myself on the way out there, not even when I got hit. Like it just would have been like an Ace Ventura and a clean pair of shorts because I would have needed it immediately. All right, Cleve. You have the floor, my man. It is Cover Zero time, and then we are going to get the hell out of here. So the floor is yours to speak on anything you'd like.
So we talked about the Bill Belichick thing a little bit, but I want to talk about, I mean, I've been sending you guys, and we kind of been talking about the injuries or how the game used to be played versus now, and what was a penalty versus what was a fine versus what was a suspension or just getting kicked out of a game. I know we talked about the injury last week to Sunshine, Ronnie Bass.
Sorry.
I love that guy. But so we talked about MVP, right? We talked about MVP, and if Mahomes gets knocked out or Lamar gets knocked out, or Stafford gets knocked out, how do these teams fare in the playoffs, and how do they fare going forward? Because again, how the NFL kind of flexes games, how the NFL kind of has things set up. You think these guys are going to be really watching now for hits or whatever? I know Matt and I talked about offline last week where Mahomes pulls up, like he's going to run out of bounds, and he just pulls up and kind of keeps going. And you're like, okay, he didn't give himself up there. But I think with these quarterbacks and ratings and everything, I think they're going to be really looking at the playoffs this year to not get guys out of there. What do you guys think?
Scott?
Yeah, it's fair. I think it's a reasonable thing. Yeah.
Well, there's so much on the line for them, not even just come playoff time, but just come career time, because so many of these guys want to get what Brad calls the generational wealth. And in order to do that, you've got to stay healthy. And I know that Dave sometimes thinks you're a boomer, Cleve, but your best ability, good Lord, your best ability is availability. I mean, you get paid to be out on the field. And so if you're hurt because you're out there, like the Josh Allen thing, getting hit, like I'm sure he loves doing that, but my goodness, the front office has to cringe every fucking time he does it.
Every time, yes.
Because that hit, I mean, look at what happened to Bledsoe. Yeah. Bledsoe got hit going out of bounds. Yeah. His career was completely changed from that moment, and that could change a lot of things for these players. There's a lot of money on the line, more and more money on the line. I mean, not Juan Soto money, but a lot of money either way. And the players need to think about themselves as a brand. They need to think about themselves in terms of insurance. And sometimes in order to insure that is to not take an unnecessary hit. We're looking at you, Tua, not taking an unnecessary hit. And I think you are going to see that. But I think also, Cleve, come this time of year, players want to show out. Teams want to win. And I think that's what ends up separating the haves from the have-nots in this discussion that we had, is the good teams do whatever they have to do to win. And that's the old school mentality still here, even it's just in another form.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The thing that strikes a chord with me is that how the game is played now, right? I don't complain because I'm all for player safety. I don't want to see a guy getting carted off with a broken neck. I mean, that was normal for me as a kid watching games where you knew a guy was hurt bad, right? But it is going to affect the outcome of games. On a guy making a mistake of hitting a guy, knocking him out, and cost him a penalty or whatever it is. But I was just curious what you guys thought of that with the playoffs approaching and how the game is going to be judged.
Well, the NFL
because again, it's going to take. the Chiefs, they're like the how the Seahawks once was, where you're like God plays for them. Like God has a jersey and he's in the game because they're just winning in improbable ways. And I'm like God suited up out there. That's their 12th man.
That's that's got to be on the list of tricks for them at some point. Is a fucking deity out in the field winning them football games.
It'd be nice to have one of them.
No shit.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, Cleve, at the end of the day, the NFL is a business, and Roger Goodell is going to do whatever he has to do to make sure that the bottom line keeps going this way. And I'm pointing up for everybody in audio because that's what it's all about. Wins and losses are fine. It's about the money that they're going to make, and they'll do whatever they have to protect the product, bar none. And that includes referees, deities, whatever it takes for Patrick Mahomes to continue to be jerked off by Chris Collinsworth. All right, fellas, we have reached the end of the show. And yes, sorry. That for anybody who wants to know, Chris Collinsworth, big Patrick Mahomes fan, big Chiefs fan. And hey, you know what? The man likes what he likes. What can I say? Scott, have anything for us before we get out of here?
No, we're good.
We are good. So, folks,
thanks for doing this. This is good.
Absolutely. Probably will see me next week. I think David's still going to be in Germany. We'll talk about that offline, of course. If you want to follow political football, obviously you want to hit the old subscribe and like button down here if you're so inclined. TikTok at political FB pod is the handle. Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Subscribe, like, rate, review, whatever you feel inclined to do. But I like to say what Bomani says, and that is if you give us 4 stars, I would be inclined to think that you are a hater. Fellas, it's been a lot of fun. For everybody out there, I hope this finds everybody well and safe, and we'll see you down the road. This is Political Football.
Peace.